welcome to another episode of the Edmonds Moms Room podcast. We are beyond delighted, and I don't think I've ever been so excited to have a guest on the podcast. I'm sorry if anyone's offended by that, but I cannot wait for you to explain what you do, Jessica, and really tell us about your business, tell us what you do for women, and how you support women through their childbearing years, through all the things. So I don't even know how to explain what you do, but it's magic. And I've been working with you a bit, and I'm trying to I try to convey it to other people, and I don't know how to put words to it. So I hope that today we can do that.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So my name is Jessica Mckeown, and what I call myself is a spirit baby medium. And basically, I am a psychic medium. And so I can talk to anything, right? I can talk to the energy of your house. I can talk to the energy of your knee. I can talk to all kinds of things. Everything is energy, right? And so everything emits some sort of communication. But when I talk to babies and when I channel babies, it's just a much better experience for me. I feel so divine. And, if you love babies, right, just that energy of being with that little beautiful spirit. And what I really do with that is I talk to them up in the spirit world, and I say, hey, little babies, what's the problem? Why aren't you coming in? Your mom, your dad wants you here on earth. And what do we need to do to help them shift some energy or realize some things or move some things around in their life, or just get some information about, you want to be a Virgo. And so you're not ready to come in until this certain time frame. And what it really does is I help them sort of deliver their messages, right? And I help them come into this world in a healthy and healing way, because they want the parents to do their work. They want you guys to be elevated and moving through your traumas and moving through stuff that's bothering you, because these new souls that are coming into the world are super light and bright. And you can see everything that's going on right now. We here on the earth are moving and doing all this great work so that when these little souls come in, they can just rebuild this world that we've pretty much been destroying, taking down the patriarchy, taking down all kinds of systems and systemic things that aren't working. And so these little babies coming in have a much higher level of requirements before they come in. So essentially, if you're trying to get pregnant, I talk to the spirits of your babies. And I think people don't realize that there are babies that are sort of in contract with you or assigned to you or around you, that are watching you and wanting to know what your lives are like and what your family's like, and trying to find the right time to come in. So that's really, really cool. And then I talk to the babies in utero. So once they're in there and they're growing, I can talk to them about all kinds of things. When I talk to them their conversation is a lot slower, because, they're like, Jess, I'm working, I'm building, I'm, making myself. So they give me much more one word answers. But a lot of times with pregnant moms, I'll check in with the baby and just, see if they're okay. How are they doing? I once talked to a baby right before they were born, and it was this golden light coming down. And it was the most amazing, beautiful experience ever, because when you're making babies, you're connecting with the divine, you're co-creating with the most powerful energy, I would say, in our world. So it's really cool to be able to tap in and talk to that. And then when they come earthside and they're not sleeping or they're crying, or you're what is going on, before they can really talk to you, I can talk to them and find out, are they still thinking they're in a past life? Are they thinking that, it's too loud or too bright in their room? Is the dog barking too loud? All those little environmental things I can really help with. And then where my work started was in the grief work. So if you lose a baby in a miscarriage, a stillbirth, abortion, or terminating for medical reasons, and they go back to spirit, I help translate their messages as to why that happened. And there's so many reasons why babies don't always come earthside. And I think when we're trying to get pregnant, there's a real expectation that we're going to have an earth baby, and we've done all this work. And especially if you go through IVF and other, assisted fertilities, you're I better get this baby. But they play a bigger part in helping you shift onto different spiritual paths and helping you move through different things and helping you understand things about your life. So not always are they here to be your children. A lot of them are, but the miscarriages and the other experiences really are awakenings to women. If you've ever had those experiences, they really shift who you are. So that's kind of what I do.
That's amazing. Really quickly, was that when that you were like, when you talked to that baby right when they were entering the world, was that mom in labor?
Yes.
Okay.
So listen to this. I talked to her. So I was teaching yoga and she called me like at 9 a.m. and I was like, oh, I got to teach yoga. And so I checked in with the baby, and the baby was like head down and it was like, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. What do they say? They're like, I'm just getting a couple things figured out. And what I've noticed is, if you think about astrology and, your moon sign and your rising, and the moon changes every couple of hours. And so they were just sort of like looking at at the whole, that's what I saw, the whole cosmos. And they're like, I just got to time my entry, and so they're like, just tell mom I'm okay. And everything's fine. Because she went into labor the night before. So it'd been about like 9 hours and she was having a home birth. Right. So she was sort of like, okay, what's going on? And then I taught my yoga class. And then they're like, she's here, she's born. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. So it was just that confirmation of just, those babies know when they're ready to come in and they're figuring things out. So it was cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Labor
awesome.
support.
Yeah, no kidding. Has it ever been the opposite way? Like where you're like, oh yeah, that baby needs to get out right now, like go seek medical attention?
I haven't experienced anything like that. I have had moms who have called me and been like, the baby's heartbeat slowed down and they're not moving as much. And they were really concerned. I got an email message that was like 911. And so when I talked to that baby, what they had said was this mother was on a medication. And I said, the medication has actually like adjusted them and they had just switched positions in the womb. So I
Interesting.
said, they're just sort of like, almost like what they told me was like, I'm just getting used to my new space and, I'm adjusting with this medication. But the advice was to the mom mostly was like, if you want to go into the hospital and get that overnight monitoring, because she had already lost a baby, I said, please do that. Like, it's not going to harm the baby. And if it will calm you down, that's what the baby wants. Like, we want you to be calm and relaxed and feeling good about it. And a lot of her journey with this pregnancy is working with the medical system and standing up for herself, right? And so a lot of times if in the medical system, they just say, oh, you're too hormonal, or you don't really need that, or whatever. And so it's just finding that voice as a woman and saying like, well, I want that extra test. And and is it difficult and challenging to do that as a mother? Of course. But like, that was like her mission and her challenge with this pregnancy was to stand up for herself and feel that she did all that she could do for her baby. So, because last baby, she didn't do that and she lost him. And so this round, right, you get to like repeat a lot of times your experiences. And that's a lot of times why this happens, because now I was like, and now what I was trying to help her figure out was, I was like, now you have this strength from that loss that you are forever changed and you will always stand up. And she was like, yeah, I've never had my voice my whole life. And I'm like, well, that little baby like helped you find it. Okay, I have like chills now, but it's like, if we can see that bigger picture, even though we had a devastating loss and that experience is so hard and so full of grief, if we can move through why that happened to us, like there's immense power in that.
Wow. Cool. I have so many questions, and I
I
think
know.
people listening to this probably will too. And
Yeah.
the one thing I think that you can't fully interpret, like people just need to have a session with you. Everyone,
Yeah.
it's so amazing because I just feel like that's what you like to grasp everything that kind of happens.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So, tell me a little bit about like your training, or how did you find this gift that you have? Like, how did you come about this?
Yeah. So I try to like shorten this story because it is kind of a long story, but I started with yoga, which was my first, I would say, opening, right? So any sort of spiritual practice or movement practice where you get to know your body and you get to know the different voices in your head, right? Your internal chatter, your meditation space. If you do any of those practices, you can find different spaces in your head. And then while I was doing that work, teaching yoga here, I realized that I could see things, right? So I was interviewing at this yoga studio and the two wolves showed up on either side of this woman. And they were like, imagine that there's like two wolves. Like I could see them. I could see the, like, the saliva on their mouth. I could see their hair. And I was like taken aback. And I said, excuse me, there's two wolves behind you? And this woman interviewing me said, "You can see them?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh," she's like, "You should get some protection because you can probably see a lot of the spirit world." And so I was like, "What?" I literally thought I was crazy. I was like, "Why am I seeing wolves? Why am I hearing, people talk to me? Why am I seeing these things?" It was very like piecemeal. But I took a shamanic training, and that's really where a lot of my experiences sort of solidified. And what I realized actually, because I've done some healing for myself this summer, is that I have always been able to talk to animals and plants and see things as a little kid. And I kind of shut that down at a young age because people were just like, "Oh, you have a big imagination, and oh, you're this and that." And so I just thought, "Oh, okay," because I thought everybody could see and feel and sense these things. And so when I started doing yoga, I started to like reopen that channel. And I took this shamanic course because there was one class in it called, it was called spiritual hygiene, which I just love that word. But it was like how to protect yourself from the spirit world. But in it, we learned how to journey, which is when you like listen to a drum and you go into these non-ordinary worlds where if you've heard of like power animals or that kind of stuff, that's where those experiences live. We learned about fairies and dragons. And when I got to fairies and dragons, I was like, "What? Fairies and dragons?" But like I could accept ghosts and other things, but not fairies and dragons. But now I see fairies and dragons. So I went through this whole shamanic course training, and I learned all these different practices, how to communicate with the trees, how to communicate with the elements. And, shamanism is in every culture. It's just a religious connection, I would say, with the earth, right? And the elements there. And we did a journey to find out what our true purpose was in life. And I was like really excited about that. And in this journey, I saw all these babies, just tons and tons and tons of babies coming to me. And they said, "Jessica, our moms are not infertile. They don't need all this IVF, and they don't need a mortgage to their house for this. They just need to clear that energetic block, or they just need to let go of control, or they just need to understand that I want her to finish grad school before I come in because XYZ," right? And it was just like, it was so overwhelming and so beautiful. And so when I came out of that journey, I was like crying and bawling. And I just said, this is something, I've got to do something with this. And then what started to happen was I would be around friends' babies who had passed, around friends who had babies that had passed, and I would hear them. And they would send me messages, and I would pass them on to the moms, and they'd be like, "How did you know that? And this is the first time that I could sleep after losing my baby. Like, thank you so much." And so I just thought, okay, this is helping people. Yeah. And so I spent another, good, I would say like 9 months, like figuring out like what this is, how do I do this? And as I would sit with people, like the messages would just come. They would just sort of like, just like when, you'd see other like medium stuff, ghosts and stuff like that, or spirits, you kind of feel them, sense them come in, and they're the sweetest, most kindest energy. And they were just like giving me all these messages. And I mean, I have like 5 or 6 clients that are pregnant right now that I've worked with because we've cleared away the grief and the trauma, and they've worked through that, and they've heard the messages from their babies. So I have to like sit back and go like, wow, like we are actually doing this, and like to see the first photo of a baby that you like helped bring into the world in that spiritual way is like so cool. So yeah,
I'm trying to hold back my tears, but like seriously, it really is just that's so magical. I can't even, that's so cool. And I can't wait to be on that list.
Yeah, I know.
I guess in like being totally vulnerable on this, and that I'm working with you, so it's
yeah. I mean, the thing is, like depending on what you need to move, it's not an easy thing. It's not like a snap of the fingers, right? But it's a lot of what that initial channel does in our sessions is kind of like aha of like, oh, that thing that I didn't think was bothering me or bugging me. It is, because like a lot of times you spend energy like holding off something or not wanting something, and that takes away from sort of the womb space and the creative space and the other things, to come in. And so the babies will just tell us that, and sometimes I just want to like, it's a wide variety of reasons as to like what it is. But I would say a lot of it is like around releasing control, right? Like I want them here, and I want them now, and I want them this way, and I want them that way. And the babies will kind of say, well, we're not planning to come in that way. So until you can release that idea, we can't really come in because, it's not part of like what we've agreed upon. So yeah, they're some of them are really funny. Some of them are really strict. Some of them are feel like master teachers, and you can just tell like, when this baby comes in, they're going to be doing work with you, and it's like to heal relationships and to heal mother-daughter relationships or sister relationships or family lineages of things. So it's so cool. And I never thought that there was so much, like, I kind of like say like behind the screen about their work. Like I just thought you and your partner have some sex, you have a little baby, and like off you go. But there's so much more behind it because we're all sort of like interwoven, and like, well, a lot of times I'll see different strings. And so like, if you want to pull one string, well, other things have to adjust before they can kind of come in and do that work. So we're going to bring your baby in. We're going to do this.
Yes. Maybe two.
Oh, yeah.
I won't let my husband hear that part.
But that's a good point. I was going to say, like, a lot of times I talk to the moms, but I also talk to couples, and it takes two to tango. You have to have the other partner. The mom can be totally ready. And if the dad is holding back energetically or has their own issues, that also affects it. Like, I just talked to a couple yesterday, and I'm sitting there, and this is kind of what happens in a session. I'll be sitting and I'll just be like, tell me about your dad. I'll go to the husband, and he's like, my dad left us when we were 2. And I never saw him again, and I never have any relationship with him. And I'm just like, whoa. So that created some energetic blocks within you, like that you are so fearful of becoming a father because, that experience for you of not having a father created this, like, I'm fine. I don't need it. I don't need kids. I don't need to do that. And it's not that he was going to do that himself. It was just this feeling of like that fatherhood wound was so deep that I was like, we have to clear that out, because underneath it, I was like, you're going to be an amazing father. You're going to be so much fun. The kids were like, we can't wait to play with you, but you've got to release that hurt that, there's anything wrong with you or something wrong with you. So yeah, both parties really need to be on board. And I can usually, with permission, like tap into the energy of the partner related to the person I'm sitting with. So I can sort of feel like how they feel or what's going on with them in that way for the goal of like bringing in the baby.
That's so amazing. It really is. And I mean, I know you've done that for us, or for me, as well, like kind of like bringing my husband into the room or whatever, so it's so interesting. Did it take, like, this is more of a personal question, but did it take, like, there's a point at probably in which your life that you have to determine that like, you're going to have the confidence to do this with people. Right. Cause it's deep, and it is vulnerable, and it is all the things. So how did you get there?
Like, a good question. So yes, I was very terrified and very nervous. And every time I was outside of a session, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Is this working? Is this helpful? And I had a big wave of like, these are grieving mothers. I don't want them to think I'm like taking advantage of them. And like, because everything I felt was so real. And every time we had a session, they'd be like, that was so helpful. That was so spot on. But then outside of it, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Is this the right thing to do? So I had a lot of doubt that I had to deal with. And I even had one client who like called back, and I told my friend, I was like, I don't know. I think she's mad, or maybe something didn't go right. And then she was like, I don't think somebody would rebook with you if they were going to just call and tell you that you were like, that it didn't work. Or, I'm like, I think they liked you enough. And I was like, oh, right. Like, I am helping people. Like when I got my first sort of like returning clients, they were like, oh, they want more. So I started to see that pattern. But really what it was for me, and I say this to a lot of people who want to be like in that space of releasing doubt, is I was holding on like to the edge of the river, is what I call it, with like my fingernails. It was like that 1%. So I wasn't like fully trusting and believing that what I was doing was actually real. And I was like kind of trying, and I'm very skeptical. Like when all this started happening, I wrote down like multiple lists and confirmed it multiple times to be like, is this a real thing? Am I really seeing this? Like I was very like matter of fact about it. But when I finally let go and I just like came into this like place of like faith and love and trust, it was like, it like exploded and like opened up my business, because I just trusted that what I'm doing is channeling. And I got enough, I think, feedback from people that it was helpful or spot on, or I would just know certain things that nobody would know. And I didn't know, like things just come to me that I was just like, I just finally trusted what I was doing. And it's like trust and faith. I've been working on that. I'm 41. I've been working on that my whole life. Like that has been my challenge and mission, is to just be like, trust this, have faith that this is like what it is, jump into the unknown without having to know what it's going to look like. So
Yeah.
it was a wild experience, and a lot, like I said earlier, a lot of thinking I was crazy. Like, and it's for those who are, working on their spiritual pathway, it often feels really scary and intense because it is like this awakening or this opening or this sort of like new experiences. And the more you do spiritual practices, like my practices really change, right? Like more guides come in, ancestors come in now, crystals show up for people, like tarot wants to show up for people. So it's just all kinds, it just keeps adding on. And it's sort of like, would I describe this? Like, because my work is such a knowing, it's just like you just have a knowing of, okay, we're going to pull cards today. Okay, now the crystals want to play. Okay, now plants want to come in. So I just sort of like let it flow and evolve. I don't try to control it. I don't try to like make it look a certain way. When I went to my very first one, I thought I had to have like crystals and candles lit and all this stuff. And, but it was like, you don't need any of that stuff. You just need to be highly attuned to what you're doing. And then I'm always in deep service to these women. Like I love women and birthing people. And I love supporting people during that part of that journey. I think it's just like the coolest space to be in.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah. No, it's that. Oh, I have all the feels, of course, as I always do when I'm talking with you. So tell me, do you work with people all over the world?
I do.
Yeah.
So I work with my clients yesterday were in Germany. I have clients in Australia and the UK, mostly like in Mexico, you have to speak English. I do speak some other languages, but probably not well enough to channel, but we'll see what spirit brings me. I might be starting to channel all kinds of different languages. That would be so cool. But I've even worked with like an autistic client, which I thought was really cool because they were very nervous about sitting in front of me and talking, and they have, high social anxiety. So they sent me an email. And then a good friend of theirs is a client. And so what I did was I made them a proxy. And that's a shamanic practice where we say, you are now going to be said client and you're going to answer and ask questions on behalf of that person. And so it's a transference of energy. And there's always agreements and everything. And then she just sent me a list of questions, and then I just channeled answers for that. So I probably could have just sent her an email as well. But yeah, it's so fun to talk to like, my mom is half Australian. So like when I talk to the Aussies, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I love the accents. And it's crazy how, because of Zoom and because of everything going on, you can do stuff over the interweb, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you start this practice before or after you had children?
I don't have children. So you want to hear my children's
Oh,
story?
I thought you had babies. Okay. Or you maybe do, but okay.
I've been talking with my daughter for a couple of years now. So here's my story. And this is why I think I work with women, especially in loss, is I am so terrified to lose a child. I think that would be, when I first started, I was like, that sounds like the worst thing to happen, right? And I would see friends who had lost children and the grief and just this whole energy. And when I've done a lot of past life work on myself, in all my past lives that I visited, I lost children, whether I lost them in birth, whether I lost them through like war or disease. And it was like sorrow after sorrow after sorrow. And so I was burying one of my children, and I was crying, I was sobbing on the earth, and I just like looked up to spirit, and I was just like, why is this happening? Why do my babies keep dying? Like I need to understand this, and I need to know what's going on. And this like message came down and said, well, we can't tell you like why, but we can give you this ability to talk to them so you can understand. And so that sort of initial channel came down of like, oh, it's not just me doing something. There's other reasons as to why these babies are leaving or going, or I'm losing them. There's things that I had to learn in those lives related to those children. And so now working with women, I'm seeing how powerful and strong these women are who overcome grief and loss. And I'm just like, I can do this. There's so much support out there. There's so much love. There's so much community that I finally have the confidence to like bring in my own children. And what I've heard is that when I am pregnant, the channeling will be even more intense. And my daughter is super like excited about that. So yes, I'm working on that. Yes, but like my partner and I are also going through a lot of things right now that we've got to like shift and work on to bring it in. So I fully understand that like sometimes it takes time to work through things before you feel ready to like bring that baby in, right? On both sides. So I'm like in there with you guys. And I think that's part of what this gift opened up in me too, was I'm also supporting myself, right? I'm also supporting my own journey and learning from everyone else that I talk to. And every time I channel, I get like, that's a great idea. Ooh, I love that. Like or I can like relate to what's going on. I'm like, I just experienced that, or I just got over that myself. So it's like most healers often get a dose of healing themselves when they're doing sessions. So it's quite lovely.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay. So I guess what I really want, like someone listening to this, and really my clients that I send you that probably just don't have like yet the confidence to reach out maybe, or like the clarity of why they should. And so I think it'd be helpful. I'll tell you, like, I'll kind of explain to the viewers or the listeners why I reached out. And then if you could kind of say, you've answered this really well, but just like, why people decide to reach out to you. What is the turning corner? And I would say, like, I don't have much, I haven't really, I worked with an astrologer once. Like I've just kind of dabbled with, I want to say like alternative medicine or alternative spiritual connection. And so it's, it's not like I felt like worthy of knowing everything, all of it, but one of my clients had actually worked with you, and I was like, I have to try this. And I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to have a third baby, or if we're going to have more children, or if that's even in the cards, literally. And you gave me such clarity on that. And you're like, like maybe you have like 1.5 or like 2, like, or however you said it so gracefully. And so I think that gave me like almost the clarity of like, oh yeah, this is my path. Like I kind of knew it was there all along, but it gave me the confidence to like want to pursue it. Right. And so that was like kind of my own journey of just, hopefully that comes to fruition at some point in time. And, we're working on the barriers and the blocks, trying to move things around so that can happen. Yeah. But as far as like, so that's kind of my story, like not really knowing if I wanted a third child or not, or like needing guidance to see the answer. So why wouldn't, that's kind of my story for the viewers, for people that are thinking about reaching out. But what are some other stories or reasons why people reach out to you?
Yeah. So I want to say just to what you said is that I'm pulling out answers that you already know, right? So we have maybe an energetic field around us, and you can take this information and tomorrow your energy can change. But why I think the sessions resonate so well with people is that I can like see that truth deep down in you as to like, why do you want that other baby to come in? And let's talk about that. And there's something there. And a lot of times the babies just are there to like help bring out that energy in that discussion. And I think it's because you're ready for it, right? So if you're feeling, a lot of times people are like, I'm nervous, what if bad stuff comes through? No bad stuff comes through. I would say sad stuff can come through. Like maybe you're done having children, or maybe, you're meant to be an adoptive mom and you've been trying so long to have, your own children. So that can be sad, but the energy of the babies it's always happy. It's always positive. It's always like so full of love. It's so I want to like assure people that it's not ever really scary. And you can always like send me questions if you're like nervous. And I totally get that, because it is sort of opening up to this other realm, but I have tons of protection in the room. I have tons of, of guidance, and it's always for your highest good. So like, we always like to set that. And I think if people want to sort of know like why they miscarried, right? Why do they have 3 miscarriages, or why do they have a stillbirth baby? Like what went wrong? If you have unexplained infertility, right? So the babies always clarify if there's a real infertility reason for many different reasons, then I help with the IVF, right? And I can pick the implantation date with them, and I can tell you what side you're going to ovulate out of, and I can if they like number the eggs, I can say egg number 7 and egg number 3 or what they want you to try. So we can help with the assisted fertility. We can help with surrogacy, right? So we can talk to the baby in surrogacy and give the information about like birth date and birth timing. I remember I had this one mom and she's like, I'm in this Airbnb and we're thinking about moving. And I'm like, he's coming on the full moon, the full eclipse moon. So, stay where you are and like chills. He did, right? Because they can tell me pretty much like when they know they're coming in. So it's sort of like if you have unknown things around why you can't get pregnant or why, things aren't working in that way and you want to figure that out, or if you've lost babies and want to understand like, why did this happen? Especially like stillbirths, you're so close. They're actually born. You can really like hold them and feel them. I think that is like really intense. And so it's just those messages. So it helps you, like, if you want to move through some grief, and if you want to understand, if you have any more babies coming, or if you have like past life connections to your kid, like if you are either really struggling with a child that you have right now, or you're like feel really connected and want to know, like, who are we together in a past life, or what can I do to help my, toddler move through this stage and this anger? Why is my kid so angry? And a lot of times they'll say, like, because they know that you're not being present with them and they can tell that you're on your phone. And if you can, put that down and just be with them, you'll have a lot less of the agitation, because kids pick up on so much. They know if you and your partner are fighting, they know if you're tired, they know all that stuff. And the agitation is for you to like, be like, hey, I got to take care of myself. They always say to me, like, we want our parents to take good care of themselves. We want them to do the yoga class. We want them to go to Pilates. We want them to feel better, because when you're feeling good and healthy and well in your body, you can be that much more energetically ready to like take care of your kids. I can do some support with like pregnancy. So I've helped move twins into birthing order. That was really fun. I talked to 2 twins in utero, and when the mom wanted a vaginal birth, and the way that they were situated, they were probably going to have a C-section. And so I talked to them. And then a couple of days later, she said they moved. And their message actually was for their mom to sit with them and be like, hey guys, we're wanting to do this vaginal birth for these reasons, and we want you guys to get in order. And I said, that's like twin mom 101 is negotiation with 2 different little bodies at the same time. And like simple things, like you want to know when they're going to be born. You want to know what your birth experience is going to be like. You want to know like what names they want to be called. Like I love doing that, like they'll either say like, I want grandma's name, or you can name me anything, or name me after a flower. A lot of them will show me the birth experience. So they know, they kind of also have a plan about how they're coming out, what that's going to look like. And then, like little kids too. I love, that's kind of my newest realm, is helping the moms who have the earth babies kind of get that remembrance, helping them sleep, helping them nurse, all those sort of things that, in addition to the great support we have, what are the spiritual components and what can they do or say to help them be more at ease? So, yeah.
I love it. I just love it. This is the favorite part of my day. This is so cool. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Thank you for having me here.
I really appreciate it. And I hope that a lot of people reach out to you, because this is what you're doing is so cool and just so helpful and insightful and all the things. And I just find it funny that like from our first meeting, I prescribed you 2 children. Like I just had like that you had these 2 kids. It's so funny. So I'm very sorry that I said that.
No offense. I mean, you probably can sense them around me because they're so strong and energetically wanting to come in. And, part of me is that I've got to like do this work. And I actually just the other day after that July 5th, eclipse, had a big shift in my energy, which was, okay, like I'm ready to heal this part and I'm ready to move on and I want to bring these kids in. And I was resisting that for so long and holding back. And I could just feel it in my body that I was just like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And it feels really good. But they're wonderful. They're always around me. Look, people tell me that too. They see like a little girl and a little boy. So
yeah, it was exactly that.
Yeah, good.
So funny.
You probably have some, magical things. We got you're probably like a little risk yourself there, my darling.
Oh, well.
And we all have this ability. I would say that. I didn't really do anything special. I don't know necessarily that I was born with this. I mean, I definitely was in touch at a very young age, but I really truly think that if you want to talk to if you want to tap in, there are ways to,
Yeah.
with medium. So I think we all, it's that mother's intuition. It's that little piece of us that, we just kind of have that inner knowing. We ignore it a lot. We go, oh no, this. But if we start to pay attention to the signs, you really start to realize we all have this innate ability to connect and to understand the other energies that are around us.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I could go on and on. And
I know, right?
yeah. And I do think like once you do one session with you, it's just hard not to want to like, I mean, I've done multiple and plan to do more. And so it's just like, I think, and it's different every time, and you just get these like different, I guess, messages. And one funny thing that I think I wasn't ready to like hear last time we spoke was like some of the things that you had said were like reconfirmed in other parts of my life, like with a business coach and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just so funny how it like all like comes together. Right. So anyways, I'm really excited to have you on. I'm excited that people get to hear you talk, and just, you are such a gift. And so thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Allison. I really enjoyed it. And I just love your beautiful, bright energy and what you're providing for moms. And let's do it again sometime.
Yes, please.
The Edmonds Moms Room podcast is brought to you by Body Motion Physical Therapy. We help women through pregnancy and beyond so they can live active, confident, and healthy lives.